The manager pointed at the waiter and said 3 words that would change everything. "You're fired. Leave." It was 1972, a small Italian restaurant in New York City. The waiter was Antonio Russo, 62 years old, Italian immigrant, had worked at this restaurant for 18 years. His crime? Giving Dean Martin a free cup of coffee. Dean Martin was sitting at table 7. He'd just finished lunch. Antonio had brought him the check, then quietly said, "Mr. Martin, the coffee is on me. My wife, she loves your music. It would be an honor." The manager saw, walked over. "Antonio, we don't give anything for free. Company policy." "It's just coffee," Antonio said. $1. "I don't care if it's 1 cent. You're fired. Leave now." Antonio's face went pale. He was 62. He needed this job. His wife was sick, medical bills. He couldn't afford to lose this job. Dean Martin watched this entire exchange, said nothing, just watched. Then he stood up, walked to the manager, and asked a question that would change Antonio's life forever. "How much is this restaurant worth?" This is the story of what happened when kindness got punished and how Dean Martin decided to fix it with his checkbook and his sense of what was right. Giancarlo's restaurant was a small Italian place in Manhattan, not fancy, not famous, just good food, family atmosphere, the kind of place where regulars knew the waiters by name, where the pasta was homemade, where you felt like you were eating at someone's home instead of a restaurant. The restaurant had been there since 1947, started by Giancarlo Lombardi, an Italian immigrant who'd come to America in the 1930s. He'd built it from nothing, saved money working in other restaurants, finally opened his own place. By 1972, Giancarlo was retired. His nephew Vincent ran the day-to-day operations. Antonio Russo had worked there for 18 years, since 1954. He'd started as a dishwasher, worked his way up to waiter. He was good at his job, friendly, attentive, remembered what regular customers liked, made people feel welcome, the kind of waiter who made you want to come back. Antonio was an Italian immigrant, came to America in 1948 at age 24, arrived at Ellis Island with 1 suitcase and $43 in his pocket, spoke almost no English, worked construction for 2 years, 12-hour days, lifting and carrying, saved every penny, learned the language by reading newspapers and listening to the radio in his tiny apartment. He met his wife Maria at a church social in 1950. She was also from Italy, from the same region, Abruzzo. They fell in love speaking Italian to each other in a city where everyone spoke English, got married 6 months later, had 3 children over the next 8 years, 2 daughters and a son. Antonio worked multiple jobs to support his family, dishwasher at Giancarlo's at night, construction during the day, sometimes only sleeping 4 hours. But he never complained. This was the American dream. Work hard, build a life, give your children opportunities you never had, send them to good schools, make sure they didn't have to struggle like you did. By 1972, Antonio was 62. His children were grown. His daughters were married with families of their own. His son was in college, studying to be an accountant. Antonio should have been thinking about retirement, about slowing down, about enjoying the life he'd built. Instead, his wife Maria had been diagnosed with cancer the year before. Breast cancer. The diagnosis came suddenly. The treatments were brutal. Chemotherapy, radiation, surgery. The treatments were expensive. Even with insurance, the medical bills were crushing. $500 here, $1,000 there. It added up, fast. But Antonio kept working, kept saving, kept hoping. That's what you did when you loved someone. You worked, you fought, you never gave up. Maria was his whole world. They'd built this life together. He wasn't going to let her down now. That's why losing his job was devastating.
At 62, with his wife sick, Antonio couldn't afford to be unemployed. He couldn't afford to start over somewhere else. Who would hire a 62-year-old waiter? How would he pay for Maria's treatments? How would they survive? Dean Martin came to Giancarlo's on a Tuesday in November 1972. He was in New York for a few days, recording sessions, meeting with producers. He'd heard about this Italian restaurant from a friend. Real Italian food, authentic, reminds you of the old country. Dean walked in around 2 in the afternoon, after the lunch rush, but before dinner. The restaurant was mostly empty, just a few tables occupied. Antonio was his waiter. Antonio recognized Dean immediately, but he played it cool, professional, brought Dean the menu, took his order, spaghetti carbonara, a glass of red wine, brought his food, didn't make a fuss. That's what good waiters did with celebrities, treated them normal, let them eat in peace. While Dean ate, Antonio thought about his wife. Maria loved Dean Martin, had all his records, played them constantly, especially during her treatments. The music helped her, made her happy, gave her something to focus on besides the pain and the fear. Everybody Loves Somebody was her favorite. She'd play it on repeat. When Antonio brought Dean the check, he made a spontaneous decision, something generous, something that seemed harmless, something that would make Maria smile when he told her tonight. "Mr. Martin, the coffee is on me. My wife, she loves your music, listens to your records every day. It would be an honor." Dean looked up, smiled, that famous Dean Martin smile, warm, genuine. "That's very kind of you. Thank you. What's your wife's name?" "Maria." "Tell Maria I appreciate it, and I hope she's doing well." Antonio felt good. He'd done something nice, something small but meaningful, something that would make Maria happy. He could already picture telling her tonight, "You'll never believe who came to the restaurant today. Dean Martin, and I gave him free coffee. He asked about you." Then he heard his manager's voice behind him, cold, sharp. "Antonio, a word." The manager, Vincent, was the owner's nephew. He'd been managing Giancarlo's for 2 years. He was young, 35, all business, no warmth. The kind of manager who cared more about rules than people, who saw employees as numbers on a spreadsheet instead of human beings with families and lives. Vincent pulled Antonio aside, spoke quietly but firmly. "Did you just give that customer free coffee?" "Yes, it's Dean Martin. My wife loves his music. It's just 1 coffee." "We don't give anything for free, Antonio. You know the policy." "It's $1, Vincent. I'll pay for it myself if it's a problem." "That's not the point. The point is, you violated company policy. You gave away product without authorization." Dean was watching this. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could see Antonio's body language, the way his shoulders slumped, the worry on his face, the manager's aggressive posture. Dean had been in the restaurant business long enough, he'd invested in a few places over the years, to recognize what was happening. An employee was being punished for showing kindness. Vincent's voice got louder, loud enough that Dean could hear now. "Antonio, you're fired. Leave now. Pick up your last paycheck on Friday." Antonio's face went white. All the blood drained from it. "Vincent, please. I've worked here 18 years. My wife is sick. I need this job." "You should have thought of that before you gave away free coffee. Leave now." Antonio looked around, at the restaurant he'd worked in for nearly 2 decades, at the tables he'd served thousands of times, at the kitchen where he'd washed dishes when he first started, where he'd learned to carry 3 plates at once, where he'd celebrated when his children were born. 18 years, gone, because of 1 cup of coffee. He started to untie his apron. His hands were shaking.
That's when Dean Martin stood up, walked over, stood between Antonio and Vincent. "Excuse me," Dean said. His voice was calm, but there was something in his tone that made Vincent stop talking, made everyone in the restaurant stop what they were doing. "Mr. Martin," Vincent said, "this doesn't concern you. This is an employee matter." "It concerns me when you're firing someone because of me," Dean said, "because he showed me kindness, because he wanted to make his sick wife happy. He violated company policy by giving me a free cup of coffee, which costs what, maybe 20 cents to make? It doesn't matter what it costs. Rules are rules." Dean looked at Vincent for a long moment, then at Antonio, who was still holding his apron, hands shaking, then back at Vincent. "How much is this restaurant worth?" Vincent looked confused. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your restaurant, Giancarlo's. How much would someone have to pay to buy it?" "Mr. Martin, I don't see how that's relevant." "It's relevant because I'm about to buy it, and I need to know how much to write the check for." There was complete silence in the restaurant. The few other customers had stopped eating. The cook had come out of the kitchen. Everyone was staring. Vincent laughed nervously. "Mr. Martin, I think you're joking. This restaurant isn't for sale." "Everything's for sale. Call your uncle, the owner. Tell him Dean Martin wants to buy Giancarlo's. Today, right now. I'll pay whatever he wants. Fair market value, cash deal." Vincent didn't move, seemed frozen, didn't know what to do. "Call him," Dean repeated, "or I will. What's his number?" Vincent went to the phone behind the bar, made the call, spoke quietly for about 5 minutes, came back looking pale. "My uncle wants to know if you're serious." "Completely serious," Dean said. "He says the restaurant is worth $380,000. The number hung in the air. $380,000. In 1972, that was an enormous amount of money, more than most people made in 10 years. Adjusted for inflation, it would be worth over $2.5 million today. Dean pulled out his checkbook right there in the middle of the restaurant, sat down at a table, wrote a check for $380,000, dated it, signed it, handed it to Vincent. "Give that to your uncle. Tell him my lawyer will call him tomorrow to arrange the paperwork. I want this done by Friday." Vincent stared at the check. His hand was shaking. Dean stood up, looked at Vincent, "And one more thing. You're fired too." Vincent's face went red. "You can't fire me. You don't own the restaurant yet." "I will by Friday, and the first thing I'm doing as owner is firing you. So you can leave now and save yourself the embarrassment, or you can work the next 3 days and then get fired in front of everyone. Your choice." Vincent looked around, at Antonio, at Dean, at the other staff members who were watching. He put the check in his pocket, walked out, never came back. Dean turned to Antonio. "You still have your apron on?" Antonio nodded, still in shock, not quite believing any of this was real. "Good. Don't take it off. You're not fired. Finish your shift, take care of your other tables, and come see me Friday when the paperwork's done. We need to talk about your new job." By Friday, the paperwork was complete. Dean Martin owned Giancarlo's restaurant, $380,000, the fastest restaurant purchase in New York history. Dean's lawyer thought he was crazy. "Dean, you don't know anything about running a restaurant. This is a terrible investment. You'll lose money." "I'm not buying it as an investment. I'm buying it to make a point." "What point is worth $380,000? That kindness shouldn't be punished, that good people shouldn't lose their jobs for doing the right thing, that company policy doesn't matter more than human decency. That point." On Monday, Dean called Antonio to the restaurant. Antonio came in nervous, thought he was being let go for real this time, that Dean had changed his mind, that the whole thing had been some kind of misunderstanding. Instead, he offered him a management position. Antonio, I need someone to run this place. Someone who understands that kindness matters more than policy. Someone who treats customers like family. Someone who knows every inch of this restaurant. You interested?" Antonio couldn't speak at first. His throat was tight. "Mr. Martin, I'm just a waiter. I don't know how to manage a restaurant." "You've worked here 18 years. You know this place better than anyone. You know what makes it work. You know how to treat people. That's all management is. The job pays double what you were making, and you'll make the decisions. Hire who you want, fire who you want, run it how you think it should be run. I'm just the owner on paper. You're the one who makes it work."
I don't know what to say. Say yes. Yes, yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you. Antonio ran Giancarlo's for 15 years. He hired good people, treated them well, paid them fairly, made sure nobody ever got fired for showing kindness to customers. The restaurant thrived, became even more successful than it had been before. People came not just for the food, but for the atmosphere, for the way they were treated, for the feeling that they mattered. Dean never visited as owner to check on things or interfere. He'd come to New York occasionally, would stop by Giancarlo's, would sit at table 7, the same table where this all started, would order spaghetti carbonara, would pay for his meal like any other customer, would leave a generous tip, would tell Antonio the food was excellent. But he never pulled the "I own this place" card, never second-guessed Antonio's decisions, never made it awkward. In 1985, 13 years after buying the restaurant, Dean did something else that shocked Antonio. He called him into a meeting with lawyers, signed over ownership, completely, no strings attached, gave Antonio the restaurant, free and clear. "I bought this place to make a point," Dean told him. "The point's been made. You've run it perfectly. You've made it into something special. It should be yours." Antonio tried to refuse. "Mr. Martin, this is too much. You've already done so much for me." "It's not too much. It's not enough. You earned this. You've worked here for 31 years total. You've given this place your life. It should give you something back. It's yours. Take it." Antonio ran Giancarlo's until he retired in 1995, the same year Dean died. When Antonio heard the news about Dean's death on Christmas Day, he closed the restaurant. First time in 48 years Giancarlo's had closed outside of holidays. He hung a sign on the door, "Closed today in honor of Dean Martin, the man who believed kindness matters more than rules." At Dean's funeral in California, Antonio's grandson spoke, told the story of the free coffee, the firing, Dean buying the entire restaurant for $380,000, making Antonio the manager, eventually giving him the whole thing. People in the church were crying, not just because Dean had died, but because the story was so perfectly Dean Martin, using his wealth and power to fix something that was wrong, doing the right thing without seeking credit, changing someone's life, and then stepping back. The story spread after the funeral. Newspapers picked it up. Dean Martin's secret restaurant purchase, the coffee that changed everything. It became one of those legendary Dean Martin stories that people told to illustrate his character, to show who he really was when the cameras weren't rolling. What made the story powerful wasn't just the money. $380,000 in 1972 was substantial, worth over $2.5 million today. That's a lot to spend making a point. But Dean didn't see it as spending money on a point. He saw it as fixing an injustice. A good man was being punished for being kind. A 62-year-old with a sick wife was losing his livelihood over $1 worth of coffee. That was wrong, and Dean had the power and the resources to make it right. So he did, without hesitation, without overthinking it. He just did it. The lesson isn't just about generosity. It's about using your power and privilege for good. It's about standing up when you see injustice. It's about valuing kindness over policy. It's about understanding that rules matter less than people,
that systems exist to serve humans, not the other way around. Dean could have just paid for the coffee, could have given Antonio some money, could have helped in a small way and walked away feeling good about himself. Instead, he bought the entire restaurant, changed the entire system, made sure it couldn't happen to anyone else working there. That's what separates good intentions from meaningful action. That's what makes generosity legendary instead of just nice. Antonio Russo died in 2003. He was 93 years old. He'd owned and run Giancarlo's restaurant for 18 years as manager, then owner, had employed dozens of people over the decades, had served hundreds of thousands of meals, had built something meaningful and lasting, had created a place where people felt welcome, where employees felt valued, where kindness mattered more than policy. And it all started because he gave Dean Martin a free cup of coffee, because he wanted to make his sick wife smile, because he believed in showing kindness even when nobody was watching, even when there was no benefit to it. If this story of using power to fix injustice moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand that real power means standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Leave a comment about a time someone used their influence to make things right. And ring that notification bell for more incredible stories about people who understood that wealth and power are responsibilities, not just privileges.